Okay, you guys, I am so glad that you are here. We have had just an incredible day. Our aim, in case it wasn't obvious by now, is to provide you with the best first-class service you can have in homeschooling. We want your experience to be successful. I remember way back when I was homeschooling my kids, it was fourth grade. I had the Saxon math book open and I was trying to help Noah do a problem and I got stuck and I had nowhere to turn. I didn't have the internet. It was not a thing. I did not have a phone number. All I wanted was to be able to call Mr. Saxon on the phone and say, hey, I'm a little confused about this direction. Can you just clarify this for me? And I knew if I had had one conversation, I would be back on my teaching way. I would instantly be able to teach. But without that bit of clarity, do you know what happened? I sort of wandered away from the program. I started thinking I needed a completely different math program. I started imagining that I was failing as a homeschooler, all because I just didn't have the little piece of support that was going to help me sustain my commitment and teach my children the way that I had fantasized when I first took on homeschooling. Brave Writer is never accused of not providing enough content, right? Like we have more content than we sometimes know what to do with, but it is birthed from the heart of wanting to ensure your success, but even more importantly, your joy, your peace, your satisfaction. And so part of the goal of today is to unscramble some of those tangled threads in your own mind to help neutralize some of that confusion, to give you the piece of information that was missing in case that was all you needed to keep going, but also to remind you, this is a process. There are fellow companions on this journey, and those of us who work on our team love helping you. Literally, it's our favorite thing to do. It isn't an imposition. It's not something that we do just because we're getting paid. It is because our team has homeschooled. And we all remember, some of us who are still homeschooling now, we know in our bones what it feels like to not have the adequate instruction or support that allows you to go forward with confidence. So in today's talk, I'm going to open my PowerPoint and we will go through it. I am going to both help you with the schema, sort of the pedagogy that goes with being a home educator. And then I'm going to show you how some of our products and classes dovetail with those goals and how they illuminate and foster competence in your aspirations. So let's dive in and figure out how to have a great homeschool. So welcome to the on-ramp to your homeschool. So I have a quiz because, we're talking about education. And I want to ask you, if you can tell the difference between these two buildings, tell me which one is a home. Is letter A a home or is letter B? And I am imagining that you guys are really smart and you picked letter B. That, in fact, is the house I'm sitting in right now. The little window over the garage is where I'm talking to you from right this moment. You guys have unfailing clarity about what a home is. So now I'm going to ask a different question. Which one of these is a school, A or B? And my hunch is this, that many of you know A is a school. But my hunch is that some of you are typing in B because you're being clever. You're saying to yourself, you know what? A home can be a school. But no. I am here to bust that myth instantly. Homeschooling is a hybrid of two words. It's a compound noun, right? With the word home and the word school mushed together. And what that's done is it has made us think that a home could be a school. But I'm here to explode that notion and say to you that actually the school needs to stay a school and the home needs to stay a home. So let's take a look at that together now. First, I want to remind you of what a school is actually like. Do you realize that in school, kids are governed by a bell schedule? They have periods of the day, first, second, third, fourth bell if they're in high school or maybe junior high. But they even have a beginning of the day bell and an end of the day bell and a recess and lunch break bell if they're in grammar school. You do not get to say, wow, the English lesson is so wonderful, we'll skip recess. Recess is going to happen whether the English lesson was a failure or a fabulous success. The school is controlled by a schedule. Secondly, teachers are in charge, not kids. I mean, I don't know, when was the last time a child stood up in front of the room and said, you know what, today I am going to teach us all how to tap dance. And the teacher just stepped aside because the child had this great, brilliant idea. That's not what happens. In fact, in most classrooms, still to this day, the desks are oriented towards a front of the room or the authority space of the room. And even in the rooms where we have collaborative desk spaces, we still have a person standing while everyone else is sitting. So there is an implied authority that is granted to the adult in charge. Many of the chairs and desks are still stiff today. Now, I've seen beanbag chairs and cozy couches in classrooms, but by and large, you have to have permission to sit in them. You can't just walk in and sit in the beanbag chair. And there really isn't a sense of family room or den, and there are certainly no beds, right? So school is populated by furniture according to a bell schedule led by an adult who is deemed in charge of the space. Learning and breaks are allocated. You don't get to take a break just because you need one. You take a break because it is on the schedule. If you are in the middle of a deep dive, truly fascinated with the subject, and the bell rings, you are expected to remove yourself from what you're learning so that you can go play hopscotch. And you don't have a say in that. It's not like as a kid, you can say, I am so fascinated by magnetism and this fabulous lesson you've put together for me. I'm going to skip the recess and keep going. No teacher is going to accommodate that because she needs her break. That is her one chance to use the bathroom, to talk to a colleague, to answer a text on her phone. Behavior is controlled. One of the most shocking moments for me was when I had a couple of my kids going to the local public high school, and I went to the parent-teacher night, and they sent out a list of behaviors that were allowed and disallowed in the classroom as the cover sheet for what would be covered in the class. So the first thing I learned was that actually you could not chew gum. You could not pass notes. You could not get up out of turn. If homework was turned in late, you were docked points. That was all information I was supposed to know before I understood why the chemistry teacher was teaching chemistry with that textbook. Academic assessment in school is organized by the instructor. It is rare, a very rare academic environment for a child to set their own academic goals and for the instructor to accept those as adequate to measure that student's progress. Evaluation is of finished products. So after the child has already written, after the child has taken a test, after the child has delivered an oral report, the teacher is not around while the child is designing the oral report. The teacher doesn't know if the child was putting in half an effort or a full effort. In fact, I remember writing a report about Catherine the Great in, I think it was 5th grade, and I wrote it on blank paper. I put it in a red folder to make it pretty. I decorated it, and I got a C for not following the instructions of writing it on notebook paper with no folder around it. I thought I was giving the teacher a treat. She thought I did not know how to follow directions. And finally in school, you need a hall pass just to pee. Isn't that right? I mean, you don't just get to go to the bathroom because you need to pee. You actually have to have permission. So now let's compare that to the properties of home, which I'm here to tell you are fundamentally different. First of all, there's no schedule. Now, I hear you. I know there are some type A parents right now saying, I have a schedule. Sure you do. This is the kind of schedule you have. At 8, we wake up. At 8:30, we eat breakfast. At 9 o'clock, we are going to do math. And then you get a text message from your husband and he's like, uh-oh, we forgot to pay the Visa bill. Can you go take care of that? And what do? You stop breakfast or you walk away from the math lesson to go handle that urgent activity. That's how I know you don't actually have a schedule. There is no school teacher in America who can take a text message in the middle of her class and stop what she's doing to leave the room and handle that emergency. The reason that I say we are without a schedule at home is because everyone knows it. Your kids see you abrogate the schedule when you feel like something else is more pressing. And because they know that, makes it really hard to enforce the schedule you think you have. Secondly, we are at home to be ourselves. We want to wear our clothes. I like to take off my bra. I want to be known as Julie, not as Brave Writer, not as Mother of Johanna. I just want to be myself. And your kids feel that way too. Don't you have like that exhale when you get home, like, oh, good. The pressures of all those expectations are outside the house. Inside, I get to be me. You get comfortable. You kick off your shoes. You flop on a couch. You take down your ponytail. You relax. School doesn't give us the same level of opportunity for that. They have clothing codes and they have standards of how you sit and behave. Home allows you to attend to your personal needs. You can brush your teeth after lunch. You can use the bathroom if you want to. You can stand up and stretch your legs in the middle of the math worksheet. You can ask for help. You can get a glass of water. You can eat a snack. Nobody is there telling you that the break is coming and you'll just have to hold on until that break arrives. I remember when I was in my growth spurt in 11th grade, my mother used to make me 3 peanut butter and butter on wheat bread sandwiches a day because I was so hungry. I grew 6 inches that year and I wasn't allowed to eat them in class. And I would just be staring at the clock, watching it tick down for that break in between classes so I could stuff some food in my mouth. Think about that. You know, a kid with low blood sugar or who has real needs, having to wait for a bell schedule to accommodate them. At home, we're oriented to process, not product. You are not saying to your child, well, you learned how to walk, check that off. You get an A, and now we're not going to do walking anymore. We're going to do skipping, right? When your child is learning how to feed themselves, you know, it's not really complete until they leave home and go on their first date, right? Like during all those years, you're not evaluating them with products. You're improving their ability to self-feed over time with the ultimate goal that when they leave home, they won't embarrass themselves. That's totally different than these different markers that school sets out for kids to hit as milestones of achievement. We are in an observation mode at home. When we notice something that bothers us or worries us, we aren't there to evaluate it as in give it a grade, give it a label, write a note about it to some official person. We are there to notice and then tweak, adjust, accommodate, rethink, revisit. Observation allows us to notice all the effort put in to a very poorly spelled paragraph. That child might be demonstrating the most commitment of a lifetime, but at school, the teacher never saw that exercise, never saw that energy output. And so the child gets graded on the poor spelling, not on the effort and energy that went into that piece of writing. And finally, you can eat and pee whenever you want when you're at home. Here's the thing though, I had a fantasy when I was raising my kids. I had read all this stuff about homeschooling and unschooling, and I imagined that just by making the commitment to being an unschooler or a homeschooler, my kids were going to fall in love with math. They were just going to wake up, trot down the stairs, drop themselves into a beanbag chair, pick up a math rap, stare out the sunny window, and memorize their times tables with no apparent work from me. Now, I'm sure you're ahead of me. I don't think that happened once, because even on those moments where I had the beautiful designer, basket woven of willows sitting next to the window with math wraps and fun books, the second the child picks up the math wrap, some other child wants the math wrap, and now they're fighting. Nobody's learning math. They're learning how to taunt each other. And suddenly the lesson that had lived in my fantasy is destroyed. And so I was left wondering, is there like a secret sauce about how to homeschool that I don't know about? Are people having a better experience and I just don't know what the magic is to make it happen in my family? I realized that there were two things that were true. I had to declutter the fantasy of homeschooling. And the first piece of that was that schooling is not reliable. Because schooling is focused exclusively, well, or more so, on outcomes and evaluation and organizing learning into units, sometimes there are gaps or personality issues or learning challenges or even just the difference between an institution and a home. That means that kids are not learning all that they could. I'm a great example of that. I was an A student. I went to UCLA. I always did my homework, and yet math never connected with me until I taught it to my own children. So despite having had great schooling, I still did not end up with great math skills. But then unschooling, this vision that by osmosis in a sunny window, my child was going to learn everything they needed, that if they spent a lot of time learning how to bake, they would also understand trigonometry. I mean, this is not education either. Unschooling and schooling have their benefits, but they also have their limits. And yet, in both locations, unschooling and schooling, homeschooling, private school, charter school, Montessori, Waldorf, the goal is a love of learning, right? Just say in the chat right now, was a love of learning something you hope to get out of homeschooling? Is a love of learning what you hope your kids are going to get in that charter school or private school or public school that you're sending them to in the fall? I know it was for me. One of my favorite writers, Thomas More, wrote this about childhood and education that has been sort of a guiding principle in the work I do. Imagine a form of education that does not try to change the child or transform it into an adult, but rather provides a place where the child can flourish as a child. And that, to me, is the key ingredient, the key factor in any educational environment. Can a child flourish as a child? Now, there are some schooling environments that achieve that to a degree, and parents love those schools. But I will tell you this, you can ensure that it happens at home. Home is a place where it absolutely can happen if we harness the properties of home in service of learning. So here's the conundrum. A home educator says, I want a happy learner. A home educator often means, I want a cooperative student. They think to themselves that happiness equals cooperation with their agenda. So a parent might say, I want my child to just love learning. But what she secretly means, I want my child to love what I teach, right? Because all kids love learning. They love learning how to beat the level on the video game. They love learning how to jump rope. They love learning how to do a backflip on the trampoline. They love learning how to bake and sew and computer code. But do they love geography, the thing you thought they needed to learn? That's usually what a parent means when they say that. Here's what kids want, though. Kids say, I just want to have fun, which we all see as, okay, that's extracurricular, like basketball or ballet. But here's what kids actually mean. They use the word fun, but what they really mean is, I want to care. You know what's fun? Trying to beat a video game level. Oh, it does not always look fun. Have you ever seen a kid who didn't beat the level after 5 tries? They might even punch a hole in the wall. That doesn't look fun. but they care. And caring equals fun, satisfaction, investment, a feeling that what they're doing is valuable. So when your child says, oh my gosh, math isn't fun, what they're telling you is, you have not created an environment where math is meaningful enough to me that I care about it. That's what they're really saying. And here's what the brain research says. Real learning connotes use. If something isn't going to be immediately used or applied in some manner, it won't get learned. This is by William Rhinesmith, who's an education reformer. The brain research shows that we make the best connection in learning when the thing we're being taught is immediately applied. So all of these ideas that we can do, like a workbook of grammar, so that someday in the distant future, they can pass a test to get into college, it means your kids aren't learning it. We have to be more creative and a little more imaginative to say, what would make grammar stick? What would help my child go on a grammar adventure? And here's the thing, that's the only question we ever ask in Brave Writer. What will cause an epiphany of learning? What will generate insight? What will lead to a child saying, I care, this was fun? Because that's when learning is happening. So let's take another little quiz. These are 3 pictures of 3 lovely girls who are writing. And I want you to look at them for a moment and tell me, which one of these pictures looks to you like the best, most optimal writing experience? Which one? And I'll wait. Is it number 1? Is she really writing? Does that count as real writing? Is it number 2, where she's sitting thoughtfully at a desk and looks so intent? Or is it number 3 with the one rolling her eyes at me and the pencil on the table? Yes, that's my daughter in number 3. Okay, it was a trick question. 1, 2, and 3 are all real writing. But let's look back for a moment. Number 1, sure, she looks like your classic unschooler with the cute hat and the tire swing and the pink Keds, and she's writing with a fun pen. That's sort of the fantasy of homeschooling. But number 2 cares just as much. She's sitting at the table, she's doing careful work, she feels good about what she's doing. It's number 3 that's problematic. This is a reluctant, resistant writer. So the truth is, what matters is not how the activity looks, but how the activity feels to the child doing it. I'm going to say that again. What matters is not how the activity looks, but how the activity feels to the kid doing the activity. What we're looking for then in homeschooling is an intersection of outcomes. We want happiness for our children. We want achievement for ourselves, like, yay, my daughter got accepted to college. Okay, I must have done a good job. Combining those is the holy grail of all forms of education. So I'll hear a parent say to me something like, I had to put my child in high school because I was worried she wouldn't have a diploma and wouldn't get into college. That's focusing on achievement. It could be focusing on happiness. I'm not saying it isn't, but focus on happiness might be, I'm afraid to enroll my child in any kind of a class because I'm afraid they won't like it. We want to figure out this sort of Rubik's Cube of happiness and achievement to lead to that holy grail of a quality education. And here's how we get there. Through what I call magic doors. Magic doors. I love this picture so much. It's so cozy. So imagine learning like a continent. This is something that I talk about in my book, The Brave Learner, so you will be able to look it up again if you have that book. A continent of learning is different than thinking about grade level and subject area. We've talked a lot today about personal affinities, and your children have more than you can count. Is it knitting? Is it horses? Is it piano? Is it scuba diving? Is it writing code? Is it understanding how long you can hold your breath when you surf? There are so many ways that kids express interest in living. And those are not scope and sequenceable subject area, grade level stuff. But every single thing is adjacent to every subject area. Math is abstract until we apply it to business or calculating how to make a recipe or using it for quilting squares or using math to build a house. Math has value when it is adjacent to something meaningful like piano, composition, scales, transposing, arranging music, time and key signatures. Suddenly, math has a lot of meaning through piano. What about history? Learning how the instrument was constructed, who its most famous composers are, the use of piano over time and its role in society. Did you know, for instance, that pianos were considered pub music and organs for spiritual church music? Has that changed? Why has it changed? These are ways that we tie in the subjects, because when we focus on a subject your child cares about, we can actually throw in the rest into the bargain. There's musical notation, reading music, films and novels and theater pieces related to piano. There's science, the vibration, sound, the physics of the pedals and the keys. How did Beethoven write music while he was deaf? Once you allow yourself to see the school subjects as adjacent to anything your child cares about, you suddenly open up the book of learning and you make it possible for them to travel to all those different countries on the continent. It's like handing them a passport to actual learning. So the way that you get there, the way that you create this environment, whether your kids are homeschooled full-time or you're doing this on the after-school hours and weekends, you need to see learning differently, and then you stage the home to support that different way of seeing. Let me say that again. You want to see the school subjects differently, and then you want to stage the home to support that different way of seeing. And this is Brave Writer's gift to you. This is what we do on your behalf. There are 4 capacities, they all start with the letter C, that guide how we write our products, what master classes we do in the Brave Learner home, how we design our online classes. We think about curiosity. What stimulates the curiosity of your child? We're not just here to download grammar information on their heads. What would make them actually curious about the difference between a noun and an adjective? And we spend a lot of pedagogical research and time and experimentation to find out. Collaboration. Nobody likes to work in silence and alone in a room with the door closed. One of the reasons kids even want to go back to school is because there's a community of learners that they get to be around. In homeschool, you are their chief partner, and so are their siblings if they have any. So our products are designed for families. They're designed to create the best circumstances for collaboration. In fact, some of our online classes involve you as a parent, because when there are 2 of you, it's more fun. You can play games, you can have conversations, you can explore together, you can be learners at the same time. I dare say there are some of you right now listening who don't know all the uses of a semicolon. I'll bet that's true for you. And instead of feeling bad that your schooling did not teach you all the uses of the semicolon, we're going to show you, and you're going to learn it together with your child and enjoy the revelation of that experience. And you're going to see the gap between the system that just tried to get you to memorize rote rules and the experience of an epiphany of insight. That's what we're showing you. 3rd capacity is contemplation, time, space, the ability to revisit the same idea multiple times so that you sit inside of the idea. So let's say we're talking about a literary device like foreshadowing with a high schooler. You might find yourself introducing the concept. And now your child knows what foreshadowing is. And the next time you watch a movie together, you might say, let's see if we can figure out if there's any foreshadowing at the start of this film. Maybe you talk about it in a sitcom? Is there foreshadowing? Do they use that tool in sitcoms? Why or why not? Contemplation is extending the value of what you're learning to other parts of your life and allowing for that thought to kind of live with you for a while, not rushing away just because you got it right on a test. And then finally, celebration. When you experience getting it, whatever the it is, memorizing all the times tables, learning about early American history, discovering an author that you really love and having read all their books, can you throw a party? Can you celebrate in a way that lets the child know that they've hit a milestone, but do it so that it's not evaluative, but it's a high five at the end of something really pleasurable? We help you do all those things in our products. So let's take a look now. One of the things we talked about first was fostering curiosity. And as I shared before, we're not focused so much on scope and sequence or grade level. We're interested in your child's affinities. So here's my daughter, Katrin, and she loved more than anything using a sewing machine. So what's she doing? She's sewing a quilt. She's listening on headphones to Arthur on PBS behind her. There are other people in the room. She is enjoying an immersive experience in sewing. This experience in sewing led her to be curious about clothing and fashion. So we started watching Top Model, America's Next Top Model with Tyra Banks. We ordered all the fashion magazines one year, subscriptions, not cheap, by the way, instead of any spelling books or any language arts materials. We read articles. We created spelling lists from those books or those magazines. We started to get into the world of fashion. The next thing you know, my daughter got interested in doing her own blog, where she did a new fashion outfit every day for a year and wrote the blog content and, collaborated with other fashion bloggers. In fact, I still remember being in a store one time and a girl yelled to my daughter from across the store, "Oh my gosh, I follow your blog." It was like a little, blog star moment. Eventually, this fascination with fashion, with women, with blogging, led her to be curious about the role of American women in our historical development, feminism, and a whole array of other interests, because we started with where she was most curious. Another way to foster curiosity is to chase your own. When I was in grad school, we studied quite a bit about social issues, civil rights, World War II, and the Holocaust. And one of my kids wanted to understand better what it was I was studying. And as he became familiar, we watched documentaries together. I read him quotes from my books about Bonhoeffer. He discovered that he had a heart for human rights. And today, he's a human rights lawyer. So you never know. And I realize that sounds really lofty and wonderful. I have kids who've followed their passions to do all kinds of things. It does not have to be human rights law. But my point is, had I saved my graduate program for after they were graduated from high school, perhaps he wouldn't have even known that door was available to him. By staying connected to our curiosity and indulging the curiosity of our children, we allow that continent of learning to grow. We add additional countries in various subject areas that help them get a real education. One of the ways to help grow this sort of curiosity is to create what I call a great wall of questions. So for a week, your kids, any question they ask, you just jot it on a sticky note and stick it on a wall. For a week, you don't even answer it. Like, why do I have to learn math? And why did Josh get the blue toothbrush? And how soon is Hanukkah? And what is a black hole? And can I have a 9 p.m. bedtime if I read in bed? Every question. And then at the end of the week, at the dinner table, just start peeling them off one by one and allowing your kids to discuss these ideas, these questions they've been ruminating on for a week. Allow your kids to discover their innate curiosity through their questioning nature. One of the things that we do in our program, is we recommend what I call big, juicy conversations. Those are these rambling, follow a rabbit trail kind of conversations, which lead to the deepest and richest education. And in our programs like the arrow and the dart and the slingshot and the boomerang, we give you questions. I'm going to show you what that page looks like right now. In the dart and arrow, we call them big, juicy questions. Ooh, can you see that? And inside the boomerang and the slingshot, we call them think piece questions. Here's an example of one of those questions. This is about the wild robot escapes from the arrow level. Roz begins to grow comfortable on the farm and she befriends the animals and children. Still, she tells her friends that she must escape. Why does Roz believe she has no choice but to leave? Do you agree with her decision? Why or why not? A question like that isn't about getting details correct. It's asking your kids to be thoughtful about their reading. And it is in the context of a loving, warm relationship with you, hopefully over hot chocolate, that you can have that conversation. And we provide these kinds of questions as a jumpstart for those great conversations in your family at all levels: dart, arrow, boomerang, and slingshot. Those are our mechanics and literature programs. The reason this is important for you to understand is that sometimes the philosophy feels attractive, but you don't have experience doing it. So in Brave Writer, we try to give you a shortcut, a handhold, a tool that will allow you to have that experience and to become more and more confident in it. Here's the boomerang and the slingshot. They have questions we call think piece questions. And sometimes we invite students to free write and put some of those thoughts into writing, not just into conversation. These are ways that we slowly move our kids from very early reading and comprehension skills all the way to literary analysis by the time they go off to college. And something else to note, we offer online book clubs for the arrow and boomerang levels, and they will do those think piece and big juicy questions with the guidance of an instructor and in the community of 40 other kids. So they will actually have a rich peer-oriented conversation, all in writing. There's no live chat like with a microphone. It's all typing. Here's the thing. Your kids don't even know they're writing. They think they're talking because that's how they talk on their online gaming board in their fan fiction blogging community or Facebook or TikTok or wherever they post. And so they just dive in and start typing their thoughts. You think, oh, they're doing writing, but your kids don't know they're doing writing. It is one of the greatest subversive moves of Brave Writer. You're welcome. Another one of our C's is the collaboration with dreams, collaborating with your kids, partnering with them so that they can realize their dreams. When Jacob was little, he wanted to be an astronaut. He wanted to go to space camp. We did not have the funds. So he and his dad dreamed up this idea that he could sell hot, warm chocolate chip cookies to all of our neighbors once a week till he raised the $850. Now, I thought this whole scheme would fizzle in 2 weeks, but years went by, and sure enough, he raised all the money. He flew to Huntsville, Alabama. He went to space camp and decided he did not want to be an astronaut, but he loved the experience. And what he learned is that anything he wanted, he could find a strategy to get. In his lifetime, he has raised something like $300,000 of scholarships and fellowships. He's been an intern at the UN. He was on the Luce Scholarship in Bangkok. He knows how to have a dream and collaborate to achieve that dream. This is the gift we want to give our kids. In my book, I talk about how Steven Spielberg told in an interview that his mother was that collaborator in his life. When he was in high school, she used to let him play hooky and go out to the desert to practice special effects. He skipped school. And when asked about it, he said, "She was more like a big sister than a mother. She let me do whatever I wanted. And how grateful are we? Would we have Raiders of the Lost Ark or Hook or Schindler's List without that devotion of the mother? So I recommend that you big sister the dream into being. Follow your child, but follow as her leader. Your child is going to show you what they want, and you are going to lead them into getting what they want. One of the ways we do that is through our writing project programs, Jot It Down, Partnership Writing, Faltering Ownership. Each of these are designed to give your child a 1-month immersive writing project that allows them to explore the topic that is top of mind. So you might have a child doing a book cover review. Dawn shared a little bit about her son's twist on that, using it for a video game. They might want to design their own island chain or imaginary continent in partnership writing, or use secret codes to talk about one of their favorite movies. In Jot It Down, they're going to do something we call body art, where they lay on the floor and you draw all the way around them, cut it out, and then they go on a word search to find words that describe who they are. These collaborative projects allow your kids to discover how much lives inside of them, how much writing they would want to do naturally when they are engaged in the topic. So if you are looking for a way to collaborate in the writing process, these are the key tools to do that. One of the projects that I did with my son, Jacob, around the time that I was in grad school was a lap book about the civil rights movement. And by then he was in about 8th grade. And you can tell his handwriting isn't gorgeous, but he was a good typer. And so inside he created all of these interesting bits of information, and we created this lap book together. It was my interest that first provoked him into being curious, and then it was his curiosity that drove all of the research. That's what we mean by collaboration. Another way that we talk about how to be leaders in our children's learning lives is through contemplation, valuing that relaxed alertness that allows for what your kids are learning to really take root. Now, if you look at the picture of my daughter playing Wii bowling, I'm guessing that most of you see that as an activity that was for relaxation. And then on the other side, you see my son, Liam, and he is a member of a chess team, and he is in a tournament there. And I am guessing that right now you all admire me keenly, that I have a child who is on a chess team who happened to be the #1 chess player on that team. Yes, yes, I am so worthy of admiration right now. I can feel it coming toward me. And that is right. Lucky you to ever have a child like mine. Kidding, because here's the truth. Both Katrin and Liam were involved in relaxed, alert learning. And as a matter of fact, Liam was as committed, maybe more so, to online gaming than he was to chess. And yet, in both cases, using the same properties of mind, dedication, learning the tricks, the hacks, the opens, the codes, right? When we look at learning, we want to look at the functions, not the prestige. There's a lot of prestige associated with chess that has nothing to do with whether or not the learning is more superior than to some other kind of learning. So when you are thinking about this contemplation, remember, don't get hung up on the prestige of the subject. Focus instead on what the child is getting out of those skills. Here's how Renata and Jeffrey Kane, brain researchers, describe relaxed alertness. This state exists in a learner who feels competent and confident and is interested or intrinsically motivated. That was true for both Katrin and Liam on that last slide. The best context to facilitate relaxed alertness is, according to the Kanes, relationship, relationship, relationship. That means your supportive, enthusiastic seeing of what they are actually doing, not whether or not the subject is prestigious in your mind. One of the places that we show you how to think differently to contemplate writing differently is in my book, The Writer's Jungle. And I took a picture of the table of contents because I wanted to call out 3 chapters in particular. The first one and the second one I want to show you is chapter 7 and 8, hacking through the underbrush, revising, narrowing the focus, expanding the writing, and chapter 8, machete mechanics, editing made easy. When we think about writing, so often we're focused on a skill set, and it's focused on this piece of revising, editing, getting the spelling and punctuation, all that stuff correct. But we haven't spent time relaxed or alert or contemplating the role of those in the writing life. And what ends up happening is what I highlight in chapter 11 on the other page. We are too often given what I call dumb writing assignments. Sorry for such stark language, but there are just so many writing assignments out there that say things like, pick a topic, make an outline, write 3 paragraphs, ensure that they have 5 sentences each, no more than 4 paragraphs, be sure to open with an introduction and close with a conclusion. And then you sit down and your child is blank, can't think of anything to write. The pressure mounts. Your child goes to start drafting. They misspell 4 of the words. You're worried that they will never learn to spell those words correctly. So you dive in and make them correct them before they've even gotten their thoughts out. They finally eke out this very boring piece because now they're careful about which words they use to write it. They're careful about which mechanics they know and don't know. And then you get to the end and they're exhausted and you say, let's revise. And your child's like, no, take the forks out of my brain. I don't want to look at this ever again. What we need in writing is a disposition of relaxed alertness, a fostering of relationship, helping our children be committed. We want them to feel competent, confident, and interested, or intrinsically motivated. That comes when the writing project is scaled through the lens of joy, insight, curiosity, confidence, and competence. And these 3 chapters in particular are going to help flip how you think about writing. Here they are again. And this is all from within the Writer's Jungle, which is one of the tools in our bundles and also a standalone product. It really is the spine or the text of Brave Writer. Okay, so that's contemplation. Now let's look at celebration, celebrating what your kids are learning with learning parties. And we have you again. Inside our products, the dart, the arrow, the boomerang, and the slingshot, we have designed for you book club party ideas that are thematic, that go with the book. Why do we do this? Because it is really easy and fun to rope an 8-year-old into a book club party with pig slop, where we do things that make the house look like Zuckerman's farm. And here's what's amazing. Having used that whole tool, the whole, Charlotte's Web tool, and of course, it'll be a different book in the coming year, but this is a previous one, you will see natural opportunities to talk about verbs, spelling, literary devices like automatopoeia, because you will have saturated in the reading of the book. You will have explored the mechanics of writing in inventive, creative ways, and then you will celebrate what you learned in a party. Remember when I said we believe in this stuff? I'm not just giving you philosophy and then you have to figure it out on your own. No, we actually want to help you achieve that dream, to experience it so it starts to become second nature. The goal, whether your kids are in a public school, a private school, or a homeschool, is to bring their education all the way home, that you, the parent, can connect their interests and passions to the academics so that they start to see that the things they care about show up in the school world. There's not a big dividing line between math and chess, between math and video games, between spelling and typing your Facebook status update. We want to foster that curiosity, our own, of course, and also our children's, without fear, knowing that it will lead to good places on that continent of learning. We want to collaborate joyfully with their dreams, playing games, having big, juicy conversations, asking great questions, watching movies. We want to make time for contemplation, allowing ourselves to revisit an idea. Even the subjects right now that seem hard to you, I want you to make time to contemplate them. Think about it. Is this a dumb math assignment? Is this a dumb grammar assignment? Is part of the reason we're struggling, this is a dumb assignment, as opposed to, I just don't understand it? Is this an assignment that doesn't connect interest to academics, that doesn't foster curiosity, that doesn't allow us to collaborate joyfully? Maybe that's the problem. And then finally, celebrate. There is so much value in celebration. It might just be a high five. It might be kicking a soccer ball. It might be ordering in pizza. It might be simply praising your child's effort. Wow, you really committed hard today. Good job. It can be small, or it can be as big as a book club party that you invite, 5 family friends to. We happen to have a $10 tool that shows you everything I just shared all in one product. The Brave Writer Guide to the Summer Olympic Games is literally designed with this in mind. We were thinking, how can we showcase everything Brave Writer does in Brave Learner Home, inside our classes, inside our writing products, in one very inexpensive way? And are you catching on? Here is the interest. This is the center of your continent of learning, Olympics. Olympics is the topic of obsession, right? That goes in the middle. So then what? We give you cool stuff to explore, trivia, numbers, physics. We talk about the history of the Paralympics. We give you arts and crafts, flags, Olympic rings, medals, geography, sports, the torch. We've got writing ideas. See how we're going across the curriculum to really illuminate the Olympics, and yet touching every single one of those core subjects? Isn't this the homeschool you were dreaming of? Poetry tea time, pairing poetry with tea related to the Olympics. What to put on the table, movies to watch, books you can check out that have to do with sports that will bring that poetry to life, art and music appreciation. These are actual pages out of that guide. And if you decide you want to experience this rich life of learning, this Brave Learner experience, this is a great place to start. If you need the pedagogy in more detail, of course, you can purchase my book, The Brave Learner. It's also in most public libraries now. And there is a companion guide at thebravelearner.com that is downloadable and free to you. So you could do it like a study. But guess what? I also did webinars for all the chapters inside Brave Learner Home. So you could buy the book, download the guide, watch the webinars while you make dinner every night, and you will have such a transformed understanding of what it means to be a home educator. The Brave Learner Home is our homeschool professional development and support community. We have over 8,000 members now, trained staff coaches, and it is a free lifetime membership when you spend $198 in one shopping cart in the store, or you purchase any bundle, or if you register for an online class and your total tuition is over $198. So we've talked a lot about Brave Learner Home. We hope to see you in there. And of course, if you aren't following me on Instagram, what are you doing? Go to Julie Brave Writer. That's where I hang out. But we also have Poetry Tea Time. We have Facebook. We also, I don't know why this isn't on here. We have Brave Learner Home Instagram. That is run by one of our staff members, Natalie. She's crushing it, and I would love you to follow along there as well. So thank you for being here live and being here all day. I do notice there is a question in the Q&A box that I'm going to answer. If you have any more, I'm willing to stick around for another 10 minutes. If you are done, Feel free to leave, go shopping, and we cannot wait to meet you in Brave Learner Home. All right, so let me do this. Jesse asks, how do you teach to your children's interests when you have multiple children who are all interested in different things? Oh, such a great question. Here's how. You rotate. I had 5 kids. So I could give a lot of energy to Katrin when she was learning to sew. Then when she was sewing, I signed her up for sewing classes. I gave her the machine, and then I pivoted to a child who needed me to show them how to do chess, right? You can't necessarily juggle 5 interests every day. You can rotate days, months, seasons. We had a rule with sports that only 2 kids could play a seasonal sport at a time because literally we didn't have enough people to drive them to all their games and all their practices. So when you have a big family, rotating is key. And you pick the pace and figure out how to do that. And your kids will know that they can trust you because they will see that you do it faithfully. If you are new to Brave Writer, the beginning writers bundle is the great place to start if your kids are in that sort of 5 to 8 arena. If they're a little older, then the partnership bundle, the growing writers bundle is the one. So beginning writers for under 8 or 9, and then the growing writers for 9 and above. And then the faltering ownership bundle, the middle school bundle, is going to be for your middle schoolers. So that's what I would do. What are your other kids doing while you're working with that one? Okay, so let's think about this differently. It's an interesting question because if you have multiple kids, you're already doing this. It's just you're getting tripped up by your memory of school, and that's what's stopping you. So how did you teach a child to tie their shoes when you had other kids who already knew and other kids who didn't know how yet? How did you help a child learn how to potty train while you had other kids doing other stuff? How did you help one of your kids learn to ride their bike while other kids weren't old enough to learn how to ride? You're used to juggling. This is the nature of a large family. Picture how you handle other milestones and growth, and that's what you're going to do here. So you might say to yourself, okay, this child needs to learn phonics and they need a lot of devoted attention. So my other 4 kids are going to watch a 3-hour marathon of movies on TV so I can give straight devoted attention to this one child for this 1 hour or this 3 hours. You are going to compromise to make this happen, but you're not going to feel guilty about it because you're going to reciprocate that energy to the other kids at another time. Can you continue to teach your child's interests in a semi-structured or unstructured way in upper, middle, and high school? Definitely. In fact, I think it just gets more so that way. The older they get, the narrower and more meaningful their interests. So I found, junior high and high school in particular, super fun to focus on their interests. I have the same question. I have an 11-year-old with dyslexia and dysgraphia. She has a ton of ideas, but can't physically write fast enough. So a couple of things. Yes, voice to text. Yes, transcribe for them. Also get help for the dyslexia and dysgraphia. And just know that this is going to be uneven progress, but the tools keep improving, and life for dyslexics and dysgraphics does not mean they cannot self-express. Stephen Hawking wrote books. The man could not move his body. It is possible. It's just, it takes a little more vision over time. And we're there to help. Like, just pop into Brave Learner Home. We have lots of good ideas for you. What is the investment of time recommended on a daily basis to follow the program? So I would say that using our materials is like 10 to 15 minutes a day, unless you're in like the revision stage of a project that might take a little more commitment, or the research phase. But like copywork, dictation, talking about verbs, that kind of stuff, 10 to 15 minutes a day. I had a concern in another webinar. How do you do all the Brave Writer things plus history? What did it look like for your family? History, science, math. So that's where the Brave Learner Home is magical for you. We have all these one thing projects that are funneled through activities that include history, science, math. And yes, my kids did happen to use math programs. So we had some daily math. They had their habits of copywork. We had our daily read aloud. That was sort of like a chunk in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we rotated between history and science and geography and cultural studies and whatever else we were interested in. So the morning was like the 3 R's, and the afternoon was the enrichment of all those additional subjects. Do you recommend doing arrow boomerang at the same time as faltering ownership? Yes. So inside these bundles, you will see that there is a guide for how to use all 3 parts simultaneously or in what order. But in Brave Learner Home, I also recorded webinars in the Start Your Journey folder for each bundle. So you're able to go watch those and know exactly what to do, when to start the Writer's Jungle, when to use the partnership writing piece. In fact, just as a hot tip, we always recommend starting with dart, arrow, boomerang, or slingshot. Just do that for a month and ignore everything else and get comfortable with that product. And then the second month, feather in one writing project. And even if you have to leave aside the arrow or the boomerang a little bit to do it, just try giving some energy to that project and see how it goes, like that. And then bring in the Writer's Jungle at the second semester. That's the way we talk about it. And we give you all that guidance so you don't have to guess. Let's see. Do you have any specific tips or ideas for a mom with ADHD? I just discovered I think I have ADHD. I did not know that. Keeping up with tailor-making education choices for 3 kids is a bit overwhelming. 3 months on, 6 months off. Oh my goodness, I think you've got it. That sounds genius to me. How many people know this adage of Brave Writers? In the fall, classical education. In the winter, Charlotte Mason. In the spring, unschooling. Do you guys know that one? Because that was my life. In the fall, I had all this like structured energy. I was like, okay, we'll have a schedule. Okay, we'll follow chronological history. Okay, we'll do big projects. And then by the time I got to winter break, I was exhausted. And all I wanted to do was knit, and play with puzzles and read aloud and have poetry tea times and, look at nature videos. Like that was my winter. And then by spring, who wanted to stay indoors? I just wanted to get outside and go to the zoo and go to Reds baseball games and just experience the bigger world. And I found out you can homeschool the whole way, that way, literally. I think one of the things we keep doing, and let's go back to the beginning of this webinar, is we keep imagining school. We don't live up to the properties of school. We indulge the properties of home, and then we doubt that we were allowed to do that. And I'm here to say, not only are you allowed to, but you will provide a much better education to your kids when you do. And you can do it. So the bottom line is this, for those of you who stuck with me for this extra 10 minutes, is that every question you have, we will address personally with detail inside the Brave Learner Home space. You can ask it in community coaching. You will get answers from coaches and community members, and we will walk with you through this experience. You are not meant to just buy the products, download them, get confused, and then go somewhere else. And I don't know how to explain that more. Sometimes it like hurts my heart. The amount of energy we put into supporting your success is it's unparalleled. I don't see it anywhere else in the homeschool space. So when somebody says, well, we tried it and we failed, I want to say, but did you ever ask for help? Did you take advantage of the resources? I've got a podcast, a book, a YouTube channel, Brave Learner Home. And I know it's a lot, but just pick one part of it. Pick one podcast, watch one YouTube, make one conversation inside the community of Brave Learner Home, and start to make that steady, slow, meaningful progress that will lead to your happiness. I promise it will. Okay, yes. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think we need to end with confetti because this was just like a miracle day. And I just love hanging out with all of you. Thank you for being here. Trust me, this is the best homeschool community on the planet. We have your hearts and minds fully embedded in our hearts and minds, and we are going to help you. You are not alone. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. See you tomorrow, I hope. Bye.